So welcome. Thanks for waiting a little while we got started. We will just jump right in. There might be other people who join us, but welcome everybody. I'm Jasmin Darznik. I am the chair of MFA writing at CCA, California College of the Arts in San Francisco. And this is the first of a series of talks we're giving this year, starting in the fall. They'll continue on into the spring. And our hope is that it's helpful to people. It can be awfully mystifying and complicated to think about where you want to get an MFA, if you want to get an MFA. So much to consider. So I'm a big believer in sharing knowledge and information. So this is the first of me kind of like busting open the gates and sharing everything that I've got to tell you about the MFA application process and decision process. So I have been chair now for, this is my second year, 2 years. I've been at CCA for 9 years. I write historical fiction. My first book was a memoir, but I write both fiction and nonfiction. I love so much about CCA. I think especially since I've gotten to be chair, I can really see the whole program, and I've got like more and more love and admiration for my colleagues since taking on that chair role. So that's me. We've got a couple other folks I want to introduce you to. So Dave Murray, who's wearing the striped shirt, is director of graduate admissions. I'll let him say hey in a second. And we've also got our wonderful Jeff Johnston, who helps out and is also on the grad admissions team. So could you say a brief hello, Dave?
Yeah.
And then yeah.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Some of you might be familiar with Jeff, and I'll let him say hi in just a second, but I am the director of graduate admissions. I've also been at CCA for a number of years now, and I'm here in my capacity tonight to answer any questions you might have that go beyond the purview of the program. So you have questions about housing, financial aid, scholarships, what's good to eat in San Francisco close to the campus. You can drop all of those questions in the chat throughout tonight's session, and Jeff and I will be there to answer them. And I'll turn it over to Jeff.
Hi, everybody. Just to echo what Dave just said, I'm the assistant director of graduate admissions. Reasonably new to CCA the past couple of years, or over a year now. Again, anything about San Francisco, anything about books and writing and food and all that, we're here to answer the questions here in the chat. So it's good to see you all here. Thanks very much for coming. And some of you, I recognize the names. We've been communicating via email. So thank you very much for coming out.
Nice. Excellent. Okay. And very exciting. We've also got my colleague, Aimee Phan, who teaches in MFA writing. I am so delighted that she was able to join us tonight. She's honestly one of my favorite colleagues. So Aimee, can you say hey and just a little bit about how long you've been at CCA, that sort of thing?
Sure. Hi. Thank you, Jasmin. And thank you, David and Jeff, for helping support this event. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. Yes, my name is Aimee Phan. I teach writing and literature in the MFA program in writing. I have been here since 2007, which feels like such a long time. Yes, I've been here since 2007. I write mostly fiction. Most of my longer published works, I have a collection of short stories called We Should Never Meet, and a novel called The Re-Education of Cherry Chung. And in the last few years, I have been working on a young adult novel that deals with fantasy and Vietnamese mythology, and that is slated for publication in a couple of years, and it's going to be a duology. So I have the first book, and then the second book will be out shortly thereafter. So I, during my time at CCI, I have transitioned from writing literary fiction and also creative nonfiction, both of which I still love and still love to write, but I've also branched out to writing young adult literature and also teaching children's literature as well. And is that all I need to say? And I've taught, I think, almost every course possible in the MFA writing program. I teach a workshop. I teach the mentored study, which I love. I've taught seminars, and yeah, it's been a wonderful experience. I love my students at CCA. Especially after everything that's happened the last few years, I feel like artists and writers are the people I want to be with as the world, given what world we have now. They provide me the most comfort. They provide me the most hope in this world and the most meaning in what we can do with our lives. So I feel a lot of love towards CCA and the community that we have nurtured and created here.
Yeah. Terrific. So Aimee and I thought we might break this up to keep it to keep things moving. We thought we would deliver these 5 main reasons we think an MFA is a terrific idea. And we're going to alternate. Aimee's going to talk, I'm going to talk, and we'll share also the one reason I think why you might not want to come. And then there will be also time for a Q&A. So any questions you have, you're free to drop them in the chat, and Dave's going to keep an eye, Dave and Jeff are going to keep an eye on that. But for sure, know that we will leave lots of time to just chat afterwards, after we talk. So Aimee's going to kick it off with talking about the first reason, the first of the 5, that an MFA is a splendid idea.
Great. I also forgot to mention where I got my MFA. So I got my MFA at the University of Iowa back in 2000. So I was accepted in 2000 and I graduated in 2002. And it's interesting, like I think this is a wonderful way to structure the program in terms of reasons to go and reasons not to go, because I went, I think, with a very naive mindset. I was only 22 when I went to get my MFA, and I probably did it not for the best reasons. I mean, I think I did for some good reasons, but there was the one big reason is not to. I probably indulged that as well. So we can talk about that. I don't think I realized how important community was. And that is the first reason we have here, how important community is in an MFA program and what it provides you. And it's probably the best thing that it has provided me, and it continues to gain more value the more years I am away from the program, because in my MFA program where I found my lifelong readers and my lifelong writer friends, and because you are coming in together, you are making this giant leap into investing in yourself and investing in your dreams. And you will never forget the people that also take that journey at the same time with you. So it was really, I think I feel very fortunate that I found the people that I found my lifelong readers. And I found that community, because no matter where we are in this world, and we all are far flung around the world, we are all at different stages of our writing and reading careers. Like one of my very best friends is still working on her first novel, and I think it's beautiful, and I can't wait for it to come out in a couple of years. And then I have others who published very soon, but it could be years since I've spoken to one of my MFA, classmates, but we can pick up right where we left off, because those years were so formative in being able to understand who we are as writers. There's nothing more exciting than talking about a book or talking about a short story late into the night. You will never meet someone who matches your passion like you do with a classmate going through a writing program. You are going through the experience of workshop, you're going through the experience of discovering new readers and writers, you're going through the revision process as you're working on your thesis together, you're going through workshops and what it's like to be able to take or leave feedback. It all becomes, I think, so important. And the people around you, no one else will know what that feels like except your community. And I'm talking mostly about community of your classmates. The community also includes the incredible faculty that you will have here. And I will honestly say that the faculty at CCA are probably some of the most enthusiastic fans and supporters that you'll ever encounter. I had a very different faculty experience with my MFA program, where the faculty felt very distant. You know, they were these people we were taught to be scared of, in a way, like we were seeking their approval by submitting stories, and we would worry whether or not they liked us. I don't think our students face that kind of anxiety, and I'm very grateful for that. I'm very grateful that the MFA experience that we have here is different from what I went through, where it's not it's about looking at your writing, still being very, critical but constructive, and seeing how you can make your writing better. And I think that's really important. So it's the faculty, it's the students, and it's also the visiting writers that we bring into the community, and also the visiting artists that I think really fosters the amazing community we have, because it's not just a community of writers that you encounter when you come to the MFA program at CCA. You also meet so many amazing writers, artists, designers, architects, all these people in the MFA programs in fine arts. And it's really great to be able to be meeting with students and seeing how their community has grown, how they are able to see art and writing in so many other disciplines, and to have potential other collaborations with the other artists and designers and the filmmakers here that I don't think you get that opportunity anywhere else. So it is a community of artists and writers, and I'm super grateful for that.
I love so much about what Aimee said. Aimee's background is in the nave, which is one of the largest spaces on campus, and maybe you can see their artworks there behind her. And it's a bustling place. It's a real art school, and it's got the energy and that kind of electric feeling of an art school, which is not anything I had ever experienced until I came to CCA. But there's something, I don't know, sort of thrilling and freeing about being, instead of being around academics, being around artists. And we've got students who get, even if they don't think of themselves as artsy, or, they just get really jazzed. They get really energized and activated by all of the artwork and experimentation that's happening around them. So I've been profoundly affected by being in that kind of environment. Something that Aimee didn't say, but that I think is also important, is being in San Francisco, which has such a rich literary history. And I think when you're here, I mean, whether you're already here or you're coming here, feeling that embrace of this city, I mean, this amazing arts-rich, literary, mad community is really quite wonderful. And we are always trying to sink our claws deeper into San Francisco soil and make connections with bookstores and literary events and festivals and all of that, because it is a writer's dream. I mean, this is the reason I think that writers went to Paris in the 20s, or there's a reason. I mean, there's a certain magic that happens when artists and writers come together in a place where those are beloved traditions. So something, just wanted to add about community is the greater arts community in San Francisco and the Bay Area is something we really love. I also forgot to tell you where I got my MFA. So totally different story than Aimee's. I had a PhD in literature. I decided after I published my first book to get an MFA. I did a low residency MFA at Bennington, which was wonderful, but it was definitely not, it was not the immersive experience I would have loved to have. Now I was in my 30s. It was just harder. I already had a full-time, teaching job at that point, a child, like I couldn't uproot myself. But there's just always like this little part of me that wishes I had gone through a more traditional program. And I think a lot of the connections, that the friendships I made were terrific, but I think just if we had had time together, if we had been in each other's company more often, the low residency programs, it's really just a handful of days a year that you're seeing each other. So it can be a quite like removed experience. And I kind of, well, I wouldn't say I envy, but I love just feeling like we're a tribe, you know, and we're sort of living this great dream of being writers together. That's something that that's really special about a program where you're in residence for a couple of years. I'm going to kind of go to another topic. So second of the 5 reasons is related to Aimee's community, and that's getting into the habit, the practice, the philosophical mindset of giving and receiving feedback, getting critique. I think this is one of the really hard things to get for yourself outside of a program. I mean, you can sort of like patch it up here and there, like take a workshop there, which is what I did before I started writing, you know, really in earnest. Is I'd take a class here, but then once the class ended, then I'd often just be adrift for another, you know, another long period of time. So that exercise, getting in the habit of sharing your work, that is the first essential step to taking your writing seriously. I was going to say to becoming a professional writer, but just taking yourself seriously, where you are habitually handing over your work, doing your best, handing it over, and opening yourself to the feedback of your peers and of your mentors. So your friends, your family often are kind, but too kind, you know, and it's really the insight of your peers and your professors and mentors that is going to give you the insight into your work that's going to take it to the next level. So getting into that practice, even if it's not always, you don't agree always with the feedback you're getting, it will just help you refine your vision, your purpose, your voice that much more passionately, right? So not everything you hear on any given workshop day is going to be, not everything is going to be helpful, but even what's not helpful is mighty useful to you as you're growing and developing as a writer. Because we're in an arts college, it seems like the architects and the painters, there's a culture of feedback and critique. It's just natural. And I think that kind of, it kind of diffuses the maybe some of the emotional dynamics. It's hard handing over your work to people. It's really tough giving your work to people and receiving their thoughts about it. And so I think just sort of having people, a culture around you where that's very normal. It's very much the ethic and the method by which artists around us are growing. So that's very useful to be in that kind of culture. I think the feedback of your professors and your mentors is especially useful, and in no place more probably than in mentored studies. So Aimee's going to talk a bit more about that, but I wanted to just very briefly define what that is. So at CCA, we have 4 semesters of mentored studies. That's 4 semesters in which you're paired to work one-on-one with a mentor of your choice. So you'll have individual, intimate attention every single semester. And I honestly, I don't know any program that offers that. I heard one recently boasting that they offered 2 semesters of that. And I was sort of like, I felt very proud of us, because since our inception, mentored studies has just been the heart of the program. And if there's a reason why our alumni are publishing like crazy, which they are, I think it's mentored studies. I think it's because every single semester they've got that steady, deep attention of a professional writer who's very much on their side. So we've got Aimee to say sort of more about how that works, but I wanted to just introduce you to this really special aspect.
Thank you, Jasmin. Yes, I think I'm really appreciative of what you're saying about critique and feedback, because I also remind students that you'll very rarely have the opportunity of so many different readers convening and talking about your work for an hour. And it might seem scary, but you will value that. I still hold on. I got it in a box upstairs in my attic of all the feedback that I got from my MFA program, because it was that important. It was that special to know that these people were taking my work seriously and able to point out and really pull apart the structures, and so that I could see my writing in such a different way. It is a really, I think, such a constructive experience for writers to be able to be able to see their work from so many different angles. And I think our faculty really foster a great model for the workshop for you to be able to get that feedback and to use that feedback. And where you go from that place is the mentored study, which I agree is like the crown jewel of our MFA program, where we get to work intensely with a student, creating an individualized plan for their writing and reading goals. And we meet every other week. We often meet, we can meet somewhere on campus, where we could meet in the courtyard at the college. We can meet in coffee shops sometimes just to mix it up. And it's great just because it's great to check in every other week with a faculty member to talk about what it means to foster a writing life. And that really is what I think an MFA program helps provide. What does it mean to take your writing seriously, and what are the skills that we can help offer so that you can start building in those skills? So our goal is that long after you graduate from the program, you will have the tools necessary to make a meaningful writing life for you. And it's not just about the 2 years here, but it's about all the habits you're going to learn afterwards and how you're going to incorporate writing into your life. So that's where the mentor study, I think, really comes in, where we not only talk about your writing very intensely, we're looking at pages every week, we are reading together, but it's also talking about checking in on how is everything going in terms of balancing your work life, your writing life. What was it? How have you processed the feedback from your classes? What is going on in other classes that will help you understand how your writing and reading goals are changing and evolving? I have met with students at the beginning of the mentored study semester where they know exactly what they're doing. They're like, I've got this novel and I want to write 8 chapters during my semester with you. And I'm like, all right, let's do it. And they'll do it. Others are still trying to determine, I like writing short stories. I like writing poems. I have this novel idea. I want to experiment. I want to be introduced to new readers. To new authors. And I say, great, let's do that. And so then that becomes a much more exploratory journey that we do together. So what's wonderful about the mentor study experience is I learned so much also from the students about what their paths are and what they want to explore. So it's a really great opportunity to be curious and to be brave and to look at all the different things you can do. And we can provide the mentorship in terms of what are the things that we've seen that has worked. I think the writer's life, the writer's role in the world has changed so much since I began. It means so much more to me. And it's been great to see all my students through this mentor study experience try to determine what their paths are going to be like. And I think that's what the mentor study class offers. It offers you a safe place to explore and get the feedback and the interaction and the follow-up over an entire semester to be able to understand what your specific writing life is going to be, and being able to offer you through the mentorship the opportunities we know about, not only within the MFA program, but the writing residencies and the fellowships and the job opportunities and the internship opportunities, all these different things that San Francisco has to offer that we hear about, that we want to be able to pass along to our students, the new generation of writers.
I love all of that so much. And I'm thinking about how I'm thinking of particularly almost now historic pairings, like our colleague Faith Adiele working with Julie Lithcott-Hames on what became her memoir, Real American. I'm thinking of also our colleague Anita Amir Rizvani working with Alka Joshi, who went on. She's sort of like, she's putting all of us to shame nowadays. Alka Joshi, one of our alums, published a tremendously successful trilogy. The first book, the Henna Artist, was picked up as a Reese's book club pick, and all of that started in mentored studies, and I think Alka would be the first one to say it was that close work with Anita, and it went on beyond the time they worked together at CCA, so they kept in touch. And when Alka was when she was ready to start approaching agents, it was Anita, her mentor from CCA, who introduced her to her own agent. The generosity is really remarkable, but not unusual. I've heard that in other Tom Barbash, and Tom will be on a future session talking with his mentee Molly Prentice, and these unions. Tom calls it cradle to grave, which sounds a little ominous, but the depth of these connections really last years and years. It's really a special thing to behold. One kind of little asterisk on what Aimee was saying is you're crafting an individual syllabus in mentored studies, and it's a collaboration, but you've also got a mentor on hand who can do that magical work of finding the authors that you have to read. I think that's some of the most exciting work we do as mentors and professors, is looking at you and feeling like you need a little bit of Elena Ferranti in your life, or you need a little bit of Joan Didion, and it transforms, it opens up wide, it expands so much beyond what you have read before, and it completely transforms you as a writer to be encountering these works of literature that you likely wouldn't have found. Maybe you would have found on your own, but here you've got someone who has this close contact with you and is able to see what's really going to make you blossom and grow as a writer. So that's also, I get so excited thinking about that, and the kind of almost like what is it? It's like finding, your kind of dream teachers. We're helping you find the books that are going to teach you what you need to write the most incredible works you can. So part of also what Aimee was talking about sharing resources brings me to I think we're at 4 of the 5, and it's network, and it's a notion that I think is uncomfortable for a lot of artists and writers. We think that's the terrain of the business, people, or the MBA students or whatnot. And I have really had to think about this deeply, because I had that initial kind of attitude about networking, the concept of networking. I also, as a writer, I'm a very inward, solitary person. So the idea, this sort of idea that I had to put myself out there, there's nothing more kind of odious and terrifying to me than the concept of putting myself out there. But I have come around to realizing that it is not about getting ahead as much as it's much more about generosity. And it's so much more about doing for others before you ever expect anything to get anything yourself. So I am constantly, I don't be surprised, if you get to know me a little bit, I'll be popping into your Instagram, messages and saying, oh, hey, apply to this internship. I am the most anti-gatekeeper person. and it's for a reason. It's because I come from an immigrant background. I'm the first of my family to go to college. I had no idea how to become a writer. It was so mystifying. And I think it's a matter of equity. I think it's so important that we share what we know, and we constantly be thinking about how could my expertise fortify the people in my community. that's so important. I know Aimee has worked with, she's been part of a group of Vietnamese American writers, and I have had my communities too, my MFA community, absolutely. I mean, these are my people, and the generosity of these gestures, I don't think of it as an exchange. It's really about a feling of sharing with people I love, really. So that's how I think about it. So no gatekeeping, sort of let's kick all the doors like wide open. Let's give everybody the knowledge and the tools that that we know of for them to succeed. Just a little kind of asterisk also is that's the reason why we now have a class called What to Do with Your MFA, because that's information. Faith Arielle has been teaching that. It's a professional development course. You can take it at any time. And that's a course in how to apply for fellowships, where to find fellowships, where to find residencies, how to write an artist statement, how to create opportunities for yourself and others. And that's the sort of work that a lot of people have to do on their own. It's almost like, oh, you'll get to that on your own. But we've been through this. I mean, collectively, we're probably sitting on about 200 years of wisdom, Aimee. Our faculty, we have been publishing, we have been presenting, we've been at conferences, we've been judges of prizes, and part of the great opportunity that comes with those things is sharing it with our students. So networking isn't a bad thing. It's an essential thing. It's time to take it back and to realize that it is also something that will advance you in ways that you might not anticipate. And it starts in the MFA program, not when you're alone later.
I totally agree with the networking. I think it is a frightening word. And I think it's one that a lot of artists and writers are nervous about, just because I think many of us are an anxious lot. We are insecure. And especially when you're realizing that you're going to embark upon pursuing your dreams, it's scary. It's a scary thing to put yourself out there because you're afraid to fail. You're afraid your story won't get published or someone won't like your writing. And what I have found over the years, the way my relationship with networking has changed is I recognize that networking with people who love what I love, and realizing that is the commonality we have, that we all love good writing, that we get excited about good writing, and that these are people who want to share it and are generous. That has changed it for me, so that it is much more enjoyable, because I am meeting people who also are these, little reading nerds who get excited about beautiful sentences and beautiful storytelling. And also realizing that I think when I was first in an MFA program, I think there was a lot of fear that not everyone could get a slice of the pie. And I think that mentality has really changed, where, especially with this, I think this new generation of writers and literature, so many more people are making pie. There is enough pie for everybody. Everyone can have a slice. Everyone can make more. And I think it is a much more welcoming spirit of being excited and happy for the people who are publishing, and realizing it's not going to end. The pie is not going to end. There's going to be enough because people will keep making more. And that's what's so wonderful about a literary community. They will continue to make it so that we can all enjoy it.
Mm-hmm. I think
I'm
I
supposed
love
to
that analogy so much. We'll
I
always keep making pie. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I stole it from someone. I heard it and I was like, oh, that's awesome. That's wonderful.
Right.
Because it's true. No one is going to take your piece. You're making it yourself.
Yeah.
And that also speaks to the work that you have to do to make that pie, right? Does that mean I can talk about accountability now, Jasmin?
Yeah, that's
Wow.
huge.
I'm ready. I love this one. Accountability.
Yeah, they're all important, but this might just be it, the
This is
penultimate.
the reason why you are coming to get an MFA is because you're ready to take your writing seriously. And to take your writing seriously requires work. It requires discipline. And discipline is something that for writers who, we are 50% dreamers too, requires a discipline, requires you exercising your writing muscles. And that means investing the time into write and to stop making excuses to not write, to procrastinate, push it off, to watch that, to binge a show, to do all the things. Someone had said writing on a computer is like writing in an arcade. And it's absolutely true. How can you write? So much noise around you? Being in an MFA program, having deadlines, having a mentor saying, I'm going to see your writing in a week, right? Being in a workshop, we're going to see your writing several times this semester. And you're also going to be reading other people's writings. It teaches you how to read and write regularly, to make the time to take it seriously. And I think that's incredibly important to prioritize that, because if you don't do it in the MFA program, how are you going to do it for yourself when you're creating a writing life later? I always thought it was silly when I was an undergrad, realizing how many people wanted to write but didn't want to read. It's just that you have to have both. It's so crucial to have both of those elements. That if you aren't willing to put in the time to read, why would you be writing it? It's so important to have, I think, both qualities, and you have to be able to realize the value and how they feed and nurture each other. So I think the deadlines become very important. And I see students who, I think one of the biggest anxieties that students have towards the end of their MFA time is, how am I going to keep this going? How am I've developed this writing engine, this reading engine, where I'm writing and reading, so continuously, and I'm nervous about it all falling off after I graduate. And what I have found that a lot of our alumni do, and this also goes back into the community, they form writing groups. They form accountability writing groups where they're consistently turning in work to each other years after they've graduated from the program, because they have their community of readers, of their first readers, the readers that they trust, that they're constantly turning work into each other so that they remain accountable, because your writing you have to keep working on it. And I don't think in terms of like the joys I get as a writer, I wish I could say it was publishing. Publishing is its own anxiety. Where I feel the most joy as a writer is in the writing process. It is being in the middle of a project, because the world is still alive. The world is still in formation. And I get to continuously go back and revisit characters that I love, that I've invested in a world that I love, and that I'm invested in, and I get to keep working on it. And that is where I feel I find the most joy in writing, the most joy, in that creation. I think it's so important. The accountability helps that world to grow.
Yeah. I would say it actually is the only way it can grow. I think that if you're writing a little bit here and a little bit there, and then leaving it for months at a time, you just never get quite the traction. And I think that happens to so many people, brilliant people, right? But who lose the mechanism. That's one of the most important things you get, is a mechanism to keep you accountable, to keep you going back in and in and in into the world. I had a student ask me recently, how do you get your work done? Because I live in the same world. I'm in the arcade with all of you. And I said deadlines, but now my deadlines are, they're not they're not as loving or gracious. They're more like, you got to deliver the book, but to have this, tribe of people who's looking at you, to you, week after week, are you doing the work? That's so big. And I always think that I don't have a scientific study on this, but I feel like what you can do in 2 years in an MFA program translates to, I'm going to say 10 years on your own, right? I mean, if you are out in the world, in the wild, in the arcade, and you're trying to do, a little writing here, because the thing is, the world doesn't want you to write. It doesn't. It doesn't. And your world might be made up of, wonderful friends. They want you to be good company for them. Your family has demands on you. I would say in my own life, every family member has contrived to keep me from my writing. And it's only been, I've met my best, still my first reader in a writing group, and she's the one who will pull me aside and just say straight up, you're not working. I can tell you're not working. And everybody around me doesn't bother them at all. It's actually suits them much better if I'm not working. Aimee, I see you nodding a little bit. And so, being around people who care about it so much, just like, they care about it, and they know that the stakes are so high for you. If you don't do this thing, you will regret and resent your absence from it. I mean, it's just so important to have people who get it, who get what it means to do this work. So coming on to the one bad reason, Aimee and I kind of went a little bit back and forth. At first I thought it's gonna be hard because I love our program. I wish everyone could get an MFA, I truly do. And so I thought it was gonna be really hard to think of one reason why you shouldn't. But actually we came up with a few. I'll give you the top, the final kind of absolute, it struck us as a bad reason is if you don't know what else to do with yourself. If you're sort of thinking, I might take this writing thing up. I venture to guess we don't have anybody in the room. All I see are squares with names. I can't see your faces. I can't see if this resonates with you. But I think if you are here, you have heard for a long time now that persistent voice in your head that you must do this. You know that you will not be right with your soul if you do not pursue your writing. And I think that's what it takes. Honestly, I've been writing professionally now for, 15 years, and it isn't talent so much as tenacity that makes the difference for people. So I think if you've got this fire, this urge, this call, that is all you need, but you have to have that. So those are our 5, unless anyone wants to say something about somebody who's, what you think might constitute some bad reasons for doing it. But the 5 good ones, and the one that we would caution against, if that was the mindset of, oh, yeah, I could kind of take it or leave it,
I feel like it's the thing that what I love about the program is you're going to meet so many different people. You don't know who your first reader is going to be. You're writing, ride or die friend. Because our students are incredibly diverse in terms of backgrounds, ages, lived experiences. But the one thing that unites us all is we do this because we cannot do anything else.
Yeah.
This is why we are here. And I have seen so many beautiful friendships. And that is the foundation of it. That respect for their craft. No one else is going to know how important it is for you to sit down to write except another writer.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I love that so much. We should do a session on writing friendships and how important they are. And it is a beautiful thing to see, and unlikely friendships too. I've seen my own friend, the one I was just mentioning, who's my first reader. She's maybe 20 years older than me. We wouldn't have met in any other situation and context, even though we lived just a couple of miles. But we're like, blood sisters. And it's really that, it's the writing, like Aimee so beautifully just said. So we're here for you. Any comments, questions you've got about what we've said, other topics that you want to introduce that maybe we didn't touch on. We've got all the time in the world. I've even turned off my phone. I don't know what time it is. Jeff, what time is it? And I
7:49.
It's 7:49. Okay. And I want to say that I've been on Zoom for about 7 hours today, but I feel energized talking about writing. I mean, that's, just listening to Aimee talking about that has got me kind of, amped up again after all these hours.
We have our first question, Jess.
Wonderful.
From Tracy, can you do dual fiction, nonfiction, or do you have to choose one? That is a very good question.
Okay. And Aimee and we can take turns answering these if you want, but you don't have to choose a track. I would think you can have the most traditional experience, really, dedicate yourself. I'm going to study fiction. Every workshop, every seminar I take is going to be dedicated to fiction. Or you could be like a lot of our students where you are open and you will take maybe a nonfiction workshop one semester, or you'll do a poetry. I've got plenty of prose writers who go into poetry and find it like hugely helpful to them in their growth as prose writers. So you don't have to choose a track. You can choose the courses that most speak to you wherever you are in the program. And there's also opportunity. You asked about fiction, nonfiction, but I just kind of also want to say that the electives could be outside of our department too. So I've had students who've taken furniture making or film courses or painting. There are myriad opportunities to take arts classes at the college, at the graduate level, alongside your study and practice in your devoted genre.
Christine also had a great question about, and I feel like this question is perfect for CCA. So I'll jump up and say, yes, of course. Christine asks, I'm curious about opportunities for cross-genre and hybrid forms. And I would say you have come to the right place. I don't know, that is so welcoming of the cross-genre and the hybrid forms. And we have faculty who we have been embracing these experimental forms for years. And so that's the wonderful thing about our faculty, that they have written in these forms. They have mentored students who are experimenting in these forms. We have an illustrious list of alumni who have published in these hybrid genres and have gone on to do such amazing things. I feel like it's such a natural fit at an art school where you have students who are looking not only within words, beyond words in terms of creating art. And it's something that is absolutely embraced and welcomed. And we often have classes, not only in our program, but grad-wide electives in the fine arts and the filmmaking program and visual and critical studies, where you really can explore how your writing is embracing other genres. I had a student last year who wanted to write a novel that involved textiles, and it was fantastic. And they said, my character is going to weave emotions into this fabric. And so we came up with the idea that they needed to take a textiles course, and ended up loving it and buying a loom and able to actually create the textiles that the characters were doing. We've had students who have taken animation courses because they really wanted to explore the relationship between their own poetry and filmmaking. It's such a great thing to be able to say to your students, yes, and we have the class for you to be able to explore that path.
And I would also say hybrid in the sense of more and more we understand that genre is a fiction, and that so much that we think is kind of sacrosanct about fiction or memoir isn't necessarily so, and there's more room for experiment and play and discovery between the genres. So last year we had a course called Experiments in Life Writing that was looking at autofiction, was looking at novels that were autobiographical but didn't go by that name. So really, thinking about different ways that one might tell a story that don't neatly fit into one genre designation. We've got a course in the spring now with Dodie Bellamy, who won a Guggenheim this year. We're just hugely excited about her accomplishment, and also that she's coming to teach a course called Queering the Grid that's all about genre and the ways, the disobedient forms that are happening in tandem with a lot of disobedience around gender and identity, right? So she's really thinking holistically about the matrix and possibilities beyond what we've been taught about the genres. So just interdisciplinary in that way as well. But all those examples from Aimee were wonderful about writers going and exploring visual arts. So is there another question?
There are many.
Okay, I love it. I just can't keep up.
Is it possible to attend part-time?
So far, no. Maybe in the future, yes. But at the moment, we have a lot of, but this opens up onto other questions. I hope this is helpful. We have a lot of students who work and who have families, and who we've had even students who are working full-time at quite, taxing jobs. And because we meet, usually a student can configure their schedule so that they're coming to campus twice a week. At most, I'm really seeing 3 times that would be a lot of days. Many students are coming twice a week. They're getting, a quite intense experience, but then they're able to, they have freedom over their schedules on the other days. So I think that's one kind of flexibility, though it is a rigorous full-time program. It allows for, just the realities of life.
Yengi Phan, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, asks a wonderful question about, do you have any insights for students who are writing in English as their second language? And I will say a big yes. This is a school that we welcome and have many international students. It's so global and it's wonderful. And some of my very best writing students have been students where English is their second language. And we see that actually as a benefit. Knowing multiple languages actually makes you so much more flexible and fluid with understanding the relationship of words. And so I think it is something that you should see it as your superpower. The fact that you have multiple languages that you can play with. And yes. No. So I would not worry about that.
Yeah, we have 3 international students right now. One is from India, and the other is from Chile. They are, they are active, vibrant members of the community, and they're teaching us so much. We are already, as a college, we're quite diverse, very international, and we definitely have seen students from many parts of the world in our program, in our writing program. Another kind of facet that I love is one of our colleagues, Denise Newman, is a very accomplished translator, and she takes, even the native speakers, and she introduces them to methodologies and practices and philosophies of translation in her workshops. And it has been such a boon, for our students to be exposed to literatures from other traditions, right? And to see themselves in conversation with writers around the world. So I adore what Denise does. She's been such a, she's brought so much to us through her own work as a translator.
Do you want me to read the next question, Jasmin?
Sure, I'm not keeping up very well.
Okay, Christine asks also a really important question that I think about equity issues in the literary community. Mm-hmm. How do you all incorporate anti-racist practices and pedagogies in workshop settings? There's been a lot of writing about this topic from folks like Ocean Vuong and Felicia Rose Chavez. So I was curious to hear your thoughts.
Yeah. So
do you want me to take this question?
Yeah, you can take that question, and I will be happy to add if there's time.
It's probably one of the most exciting and much needed things to happen, honestly, to the MFA writing programs across the country. I feel like I don't know if I was the last of it, but I will say that I probably experienced a very traditional MFA program, and that meant a program that was very focused on the white male writer and having a handful of writers of color come in to a school in the middle of Iowa, right? And having to try to explain your writing as something that was beyond just exoticizing other, or just trying to, having the representation sweats of what does it mean to write something in a workshop setting that is used to reading mostly old white men. It's changed so much in the last 20 years, I believe, the MFA writing program. And that has been due to, honestly, very, very smart young writers of color coming in and realizing we don't need to be treated this way, and we don't deserve to be treated this way. I think Matt Salas's did an amazing job with his book in terms of decolonializing the MFA writing workshop and how we can incorporate those practices in. I feel like many of our faculty do that. We at CCA had an initiative with a lot of faculty across not just the writing program, but the architecture, design, and the fine arts, where we were looking to find ways to decolonize the curriculum and be more inclusive, and honestly to update it to incorporate the things that we're thinking about now. Things are important now. So I feel like every faculty is going to treat their workshop in a different way. That's one of the benefits, I think. When you come here, you're going to have 4 very different workshop experiences. And I will say that I am so confident in my colleagues in the way we teach, that it isn't the old way at all. And that so many of our faculty have learned and have, from their own experiences, to create an environment where every student feels honored in terms of, and respected, and seeing the writing in the best, being able to really place ourselves in a place where we are learning from that writer and not presuming things and not making biases and assumptions. Do I say it's perfect? I don't think it's perfect. I think actually, and that's where we learn in the workshop, how to read each other's writings and understand that we're not experts in every background, but we're learning together. And yeah, I'm talking like in big circles right now, but Jasmin, if you want to also like contribute to that, like I'm just so I think I feel a lot of confidence towards in our students and in the environments we create in the classroom, so that if there is any concerns about those biases, they are addressed in the classroom, they're addressed in the workshop, and everyone comes from a place of respect when we come in there.
Yeah, more and more, I am bringing those books into the classroom and working with them. So actually this week we're reading, Aimee was referencing Matt Salis's book. We're reading Craft in the Real World. And so this might, not be known to the students. They might not even know what they're missing. They might not know that these debates and conversations have been going on, but I bring it into the classroom. I know my colleagues do as well in their own ways, but it's something that we've integrated into our practice. And I don't know a single person who teaches in that. I don't know. I haven't been into every single creative writing workshop, but the sort of old modes of you're in that cone of silence and the hazing type atmosphere that these programs once engendered is so far off the map. In my workshops, students are the person who's being workshopped always has occasion to speak. We never want someone to feel like they're being shut out of their own experience. And there's so much that we can learn in collaborating and bringing their voice to the table. So that's been a shift I've made. It's been probably a decade now that I've been doing that. We have another colleague who only, she has her students only respond in questions to her feedback. The students' feedback is always couched in questions. So that's a way of breaking that prescriptive kind of attitude, right? Where it's really about being a curious and compassionate reader of one another's works. I mean, the ethic is, it pervades the atmosphere, and it absolutely has changed our practices for the better.
I think a lot of the questions have already, some of the logistical questions, David has done such a great job.
Thank you so much, Dave.
Yeah, and Jeff and I did chime in on a question about the difference between CCA's MFA writing program and fully funded programs.
Mhm.
And Jasmin and Aimee, I wonder if you can speak to that, what the experience is in your writing program versus at a school where you're really splitting your time between being a teacher and a student.
Yeah, I mean, I think, that nothing is ever free, right? I mean, if someone's, I don't know, there might be some things I haven't been the beneficiary of many of them, but a lot of writing programs, I mean, it's a fairly relatively cheap way of getting undergrad classes staffed, honestly. So programs will offer what seems like a terrific deal, but you're actually paying back in teaching hours. I think it's terrific to teach, but you're here primarily to write, and it should be your prerogative. So you shouldn't be at my sort of having to pay your way through your labors as a teacher. If you want the experience as a TA, it's there for you, but you make that decision, basically. So they're teaching opportunities, but they're at your election. I'd say look very carefully, what seems on the face of it so often a great deal has these kind of workings behind it. Am I right, Dave? You see so much of the world of graduate education.
Yeah, it really is, as you say, it's what the student wants to get out of the program.
Mhm.
That if cost is the primary driver, and a fully funded program for that reason is the right fit, the kind of small print statement is that you will spend a lot of your time as a first year college teacher running a class, curriculum planning, grading papers, doing the day in, day out work of a teacher alongside developing your own practice. Where the students in a non-fully funded program, as Jasmin said, really have the prerogative to engage in the teaching opportunity if being in the classroom is something you could see yourself doing in the future. But also you're a student first. You really have that luxury of time to develop your practice and engage in the community, which, as you've heard tonight, it's invaluable to any creative practitioner, writer, designer, artist. That's why you go to grad school. You could sit alone in your room and write for 20 years and probably make something good, but you're going to develop in dog years in grad school because of that short feedback loop that is constantly kind of enriching the practice and coming back into what you're putting into your work. So it really is a trade-off, and there's no right answer for everyone, but it is something to consider.
I like that, the dog years. That made it.
Well,
It's
it is a
so-
borrowed statement from my graduate advisor.
It's so important to really dig in there, thinking about what is the ratio and how often will you actually get to work with that illustrious professor. I went to grad school at Princeton. I never saw Toni Morrison a single time. But people ask me all the time, oh, did you get to work with her? I didn't. And, I think, you really have to think, like, what am I actually getting? How many students are going to be in my workshop? Will I even have a mentorship opportunity? You might not have any occasion to work with a mentor. There's so many different kinds of MFA experiences. And, there's no one that I could think is hands down the best way, but you just really have to look very carefully because things aren't always what they seem. And you want to do your research.
I will say one of the best things about our program is the fact that we are a smaller program, and because of that, we get to know our students really well, and we can really get behind every student, really get to know them well, really understand like what opportunities will be when we see them. Oh, this is perfect for this student or this student, and sharing the resources with other faculty. Oh, you get to work with Daniela this semester. I'm really excited about her book idea, and then we talk about other things, you know. So it's yeah, it's unlike my MFA program where I talk to my my faculty once or twice a semester outside of the classroom, right? Because they were honestly, they showed up for class, and then they would show up for the mandated meetings, and then we never. And I remember my thesis reader signed off on my thesis, and I don't think
Yeah.
ever read it, right? Where that is not what's going to happen here. You are going to have people who have been reading your work the entire 2 years, so that they've really been able to see the trajectory of the piece. It is a much more meaningful relationship, I think, that you get in a smaller program.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, you can't hide even if you want to. Yeah, I mean, you won't get lost. You really won't. You know, there's always someone who notices you're not there, or you're, you know, maybe you need you need to sit down and have a cup of coffee and just, you know, talk things out. Or there's no way of kind of being left to drift and get lost. You know. Um, yeah, we get to know each other really quite well. We never forget our students. I still remember students I taught a decade ago. Writing is so special that way too, that I think we get to know each other with, you know, a particular depth, because we're reading each other's work, which is such an intimate part of who we are. So those relationships go on and on. They really do.
I see one final question in there from Daniela, which I think is actually a wonderful question.
Mhm.
And it asks, what excites, what are some things that make you really excited about an applicant's writing sample? Which I think is a really fun question.
Yeah, I mean,
Because
we all read the application, so it's you know, we really work together on all of that. It's not just, you know, it's not just my work. So Aimee has years and years of experience reading. What excites you, Aimee, when you sit down with those stacks?
I think something, when I get surprised by something, I think lots of different things, like a beautiful sentence that I've never heard read before, just a different turn of phrase can be delightful. Um, a really unexpected character. I love getting surprised
Yeah,
in writing. I love feeling the excitement that the writer feels in the writing. And so that's why it doesn't matter the genre. That's also another lovely development in terms of getting an MFA in writing. It used to be that genres were so poo-pooed, and now they are so celebrated, because within genre writing, you can have such beautiful writing, right? And they are really exciting containers to be able to create new worlds. So I think the exciting things are the unexpected, the surprising things. I think we work so hard in our writing to create a moment where a writer and reader feel so close to each other that we feel something unexpected but also inevitable happening. And it's such a great moment because you feel like you're experiencing it with the writer as they're writing it. You feel the joy that they feel when they're creating those characters. That, and I know that's a very vague answer, but I think it's because every writer has a different passion that they're exploring in their writing, right? And so in a way, it doesn't matter what the world is. It doesn't matter the genre. It doesn't matter the type of character. It doesn't matter the relationship. I think when you see those lives created on the page, it's a thing that you can just see it. You can feel it in the sentence. You can feel it on the page. You're like, oh gosh, this person knows this world and is writing it in a way that I just can't look away, right?
so many things. Yeah, I love to encounter somebody with a feel for language. You know, I think just I do love a beautifully wrought sentence. You know, it can be a surprising syntax or just a kind of fresh idiom, a distinctive voice. That sort of thing always stops me in my tracks. What are the things? I love what Aimee's saying about the passion showing through the work, right? And I think risk is something I admire a lot in a writer, and that could be, you know, in memoir, of course, there's the risk of telling the truth about your life, and I respond to that with, you know, great interest. But in fiction too, you know, where somebody's kind of pushing past through what's usually said about something and daring to tell you something with kind of a ferocious honesty. You feel that in fiction too. And that's something I love a lot, work that takes risks in some way. So much. I think it's unfortunate. It's one of those things, you know it when you see it. It's like falling in love. And I've heard, you know, I was actually on a talk with my agent, and my editor we did a panel over the summer, and they were asked again and again, you know, so many people wanted to know what makes you buy a manuscript, you know. And they also, I mean, these are women who've been working in professionally in publishing for decades, and they kept bringing it back to, it's like love, you know, you just feel it, you know it, you know, you can't look away, like Aimee's saying, that it is that kind of, it's almost inexplicable, but you know it, you can feel the originality, the passion, the dedication that somebody's put through, right? Yeah. Well, but it's gonna, maybe a good way to end is that the conversation isn't over, and I started out by saying that this is part of a series. We've got 3 more sessions like this. So Aimee and I, this is how much you'll see of us this semester at least, but next on will be our colleague Tom Barbash on November the 15th. It'll be a noontime session. He's going to be talking with his wonderful student Molly Prentice about mentorship, how to make the most of a mentorship, what their working relationship was while Molly was at CCA. Then we've also got a session, and our colleague Faith Adiele is leading a session on making sense of yourself. Wait, she's got a terrific title, but it's Personal Statements 101, basically, is how do you distinguish yourself in the personal statement in your application? And that is something that's relevant for MFA applications, but also if you're applying to residencies or fellowships, or many opportunities will ask of you to write a story about yourself. And Faith is such a terrific writer. That will be December the 7th. And one more session for the poets, if there are any poets out there. Our colleagues Joseph Leese and Denise Newman are going to talk about how you order and put together your collection of poetry for a poetry MFA application. So there's more to come. I am always available by email. My email's jdarznik@cca.edu. And I know Jeff is always wonderfully generous with his time. Dave is as well. Can I say that of you too, Aimee? Yeah.
My email's easy too.
Terrific. And yeah, so if we didn't answer something, or later today something occurs to you and you want to follow up with us, definitely get in touch. We are so happy to continue the conversation and answer your questions.
Great. And I just dropped in the chat the 2 links to where you would be able to register for upcoming events. So all of the upcoming writing sessions Jasmin just mentioned will go live in the coming days on the first link. And then I will mention you all are having an open house on November 18th.
Yeah.
So any of you who are in the Bay Area or are willing to come to the Bay Area, we'd love to see you on campus. Meet you in person, expand this conversation at greater length, maybe has a glass of wine in the process. We'd be happy to see you. But there's certainly plenty of opportunities to engage with us virtually and along the way between now and then.
And you're already invited to everything. So we have visiting writers coming through all the time. We've got Charlie Jane Anders, terrific sci-fi writer, is coming through on Tuesday, this coming Tuesday. Jenny Odell, great nonfiction writer, is coming later on in the semester. So there's always something happening, and you just got a standing invitation to join us whenever you want. Thank you,
Thank you
everybody.
for joining us.